Let's talk about the 7 steps to settling an estate after death of a parent. Understanding the process of settling an estate can help you wrap your mind around all the different components you need to know about what happens after death, including the death of a parent. The settling an estate process can be long, and it's often confusing for the estate executors and administrators going through it for the first time. But when you have a solid checklist for settling an estate with a timeline that details what to expect and when to expect it, you may find it's actually not as complicated as you first thought. Especially if you've been named the estate executor or administrator, you need to understand the settling an estate process so you can ensure that the estate is settled properly and timely, and that all beneficiaries receive their share of the estate as intended. Using the following checklist for settling an estate to feel confident you've done everything you need in order to properly settle an estate. Hi, I'm Kim Ward. My team and I have been helping executors, administrators, and trustees with homes in San Diego County in probate or trust administration for 20 years. If you like this checklist, please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button so that the YouTube algorithm knows that you find my videos of value. Now let's keep going. These are the 7 steps checklist for settling an estate after death. 1. Organize important information. 2. Determine your need for a probate attorney. 3. File, or your probate attorney will file the will and notify necessary persons. 4. Take inventory and appraise all assets. I have an easy inventory collector that you can request a copy of if you or the home are in San Diego County in California. 5. Set up a bank account, pay off any debts, and pay taxes. 6. Distribute assets according to the deceased person's will. And finally, number 7, after many months or maybe a year, close the estate. Now let's go into depth on each of these 7 steps checklist for settling an estate. Organize important information. Again, the first step and one of the most important ones in the process of settling an estate is getting organized. You want to keep track of both your expenses and all the time you spend working on settling an estate after death, as you may be entitled to be compensated. You should look for a will. You'll need access to several certified copies of the death certificate. You must notify financial institutions, including the bank, credit card companies, and any investment firms. Be sure to inform the Social Security Administration and know that you'll need the deceased Social Security number to do so. Try to find a copy of the most current tax return, a birth certificate, and any other important information. There are other practical things to do also through the checklist for settling an estate. If you didn't live with the deceased and there is now an empty property, you should secure it by changing the locks. You want to take a detailed inventory of all of his or her belongings. Again, I've developed my easy inventory collector for you if you wish. We'll go more into detail about this below, but you're going to need to open a checking account that's in the estate's name. You'll be paying bills for things like final bills, court costs, potential lawyers' fees, cost-effective repairs on the decedent's home, and more from this particular account. Once you have these basic documents and tasks done, you should make one master list of contacts that includes all business associates and colleagues, anyone named in the will, neighbors, friends, relatives, and others that you think are important. Next, you'll want to determine the need for a probate attorney and their help. And now that you've started the process of settling an estate after death, you'll probably want the guidance of a very good probate attorney. To mitigate some of the confusion through settling an estate, some opt to just hire an attorney to coach them along the way. If the deceased only had a will, it's likely the estate will have to go through probate. So what is probate? Probate is the court proceeding that validates a will. If there was a trust set up, or if the estate is very small in value, it may avoid probate altogether. Number 3, file the will and notify necessary persons. If there is a will, it must be filed in the probate court after death. Beneficiaries need to be notified. Other people to notify include, after death or the death of a parent, are creditors, banks, the post office, utility companies, and any other business the deceased had accounts with. A smaller detail through the checklist for settling an estate, but one that will ultimately need to be handled, includes canceling any subscriptions and notifying any agencies that are offering the deceased benefits such as pension plans. The last thing you want to have to be dealing with when settling an estate is returning payments that the estate was not entitled to. The next step is number 4 through the checklist for settling an estate. It is to take inventory and get the estate assets appraised. Taking inventory of all assets to see what needs to be distributed. You may want to have any high value assets appraised so you can determine whether or not the estate will owe any taxes. Remember that as executor or administrator, it's your responsibility to take care of the assets, particularly the valuable ones, until they are distributed accordingly. Number 5 is to set up a bank account, pay debts, and pay taxes. After you have your letters of administration, which are granted by the probate court, and appoint a person or people the authority to deal with an estate after death, you'll want to set up a bank account. Use the estate account to collect money that may be owed to the deceased person, meaning any final wages or insurance benefits, etc. You can and should use this money to pay off any debts, funeral costs, or other expenses that come up. While we're talking about bank accounts when settling an estate, you need an EIN or employee ID number, also sometimes known as the tax ID number, to settle an estate. The EIN is used to file taxes on the estate's behalf and what you'll need to open the estate bank account after death. Basically, the EIN replaces your loved one's social security number now that they have passed away. Even though the person who borrowed and accrued debt is no longer living, most, if not all, of their debts will still need to be paid off. Luckily, the estate, not you personally, will pay the debts so you don't have to worry about anything other than figuring out what debts are owed to which companies. You'll also be required to file any necessary tax returns and ensure taxes are paid. When settling an estate after death, you may need to file the following: the federal tax return, the Form 706, state level estate taxes, gift and generation skipping transfer tax, this is Form 709, estate and income tax, Form 1041, final individual income taxes, Form 1040. Now, number 6 in the 7 steps checklist for settling an estate is to distribute assets accordingly. After debts and taxes are paid, and if probate is closed, then you can distribute the assets according to the decedent's final wishes. You'll want the help of your probate attorney with this process. As a side note, it's recommended that you withhold some funds in the estate bank account for 6 months to a year to have money available to pay any final taxes or bills. You would then distribute any remaining funds before closing the estate bank account. And finally, the 7th step in the checklist for settling an estate is to close the estate. Once all of the above steps have been thoroughly completed, you can finally file a petition for discharge of executor or administrator responsibilities and ask the probate court to formally close the estate. How long an executor or administrator has to settle an estate generally depends on several things. Factors include issues such as the location, what state the estate is in, where the house is, not the executor or the administrator, how complex the estate is, how complete and well done the estate plan is, among other things. In short, executor or administrator generally has as long as he or she needs when settling an estate after death of a parent, provided all statutory deadlines are met. It used to be thought that only the very wealthy had what's known as an estate, but the truth is, even if the estate doesn't have a six-figure savings account or own a mansion after death, it's likely to be a lot of work through the process of settling an estate. Hey, thanks for watching. If you found this of value, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button, and I hope you did find it of value. And keep watching the rest of my videos so that you become better educated and know what to expect when settling an estate. Thanks, see you next week.